Hello, my name is Iona Nandy, and I am a sophomore at the Union County Academy for Allied Health Sciences in New Jersey. Over the summer, I conducted a systematic review on how exergames could be used to improve the cognitive ability of adults with dementia. My results were promising. But first, let's start with an introduction to some definitions. Dementia is a condition characterized by a loss of cognitive functioning, such as thinking, remembering, and reasoning, so severe that it impacts a person's daily routine. On a neurobiological level, it is caused by changes in the neurons, nerve and brain cells, in certain regions of the brain, usually when the connections stop working properly. Only some kinds of dementia-like symptoms can be reversed if they are found soon enough, usually if they are caused by brain injury, brain tumors, alcohol abuse, and some brain infections. Video games are games that instead of playing in real life, you play on an electronic device, and they require both a strong attention and perceptual ability to play. There are many different types. However, this review focuses on exergames, which are video games that incorporate physical activity into gameplay. Cognitive ability is defined as the skills involved in performing the tasks associated with perception, learning, memory, understanding, awareness, reasoning, judgment, intuition, and language by the APA Dictionary of Psychology. The objective of this review is to identify if exergaming can be used to improve aspects of cognitive ability in adults with dementia. The risk of getting dementia after the age of 55 is slowly increasing, and the amount of cases is expected to double by 2060, making this issue a pertinent one. Now onto my methods. A systematic review was conducted following PRISMA guidelines. The keywords video games and dementia were used together to search in the PubMed, Google Scholar Cochrane, APA PsycInfo, HealthSource Nursing/Academic Edition, Embase, Scopus, and Web of Science databases in July 2025. A total of 343 records were screened for title and abstracts. Of those, 228 were selected based on the mention of dementia or major neurocognitive disorder and video games of any kind. From those 228 records, 176 remained after duplicates were removed. The 176 records were cut down to 19 based on 3 criteria. All subjects must either have reported dementia or major neurocognitive disorder. The function measured must be related to one of the aspects of cognitive ability as defined by the APA, and this treatment method has to be a form of a video game that requires physical movement. These 19 were further assessed for eligibility, ultimately yielding 8 records to be included in the systematic review. For this assessment, full-text records were reviewed based on the following criteria. Results must report the change or lack of change in cognitive function, not if it is measurable or not. Qualitative and/or quantitative data must be presented, and the data of subjects with neurocognitive disorders other than dementia could not be mixed into the datasets of subjects with dementia. Now onto my results. The 13 categories of cognitive function I chose to study in this systematic review were attention and concentration, memory, naming, recognition, reaction time, overall cognitive function, delayed recall and verbal recall, language, abstraction, orientation, visuospatial function, MoCA or Montreal Cognitive Assessment /MMSE or Mini Mental State Examination scores, and executive function. Let's go through the studies first. The first study, Asman and Suzuki et al. 2017, is a comparative study / quasi-experimental design. The study consisted of 5 participants from around the Aichi Prefecture in Japan. In their exergaming intervention, participants were trained with a dance video game for 20 minutes twice a week for 6 weeks, then a 6-month break, before continuing for another 6 weeks. In the control group, everything remained the same, except participants in the control group had mild cognitive impairment instead of major neurocognitive disorder, or MNCD. They found improvement in overall cognitive function. The second study, Stanton et al. 2018, is a systematic review. The sample size ranged from 19 participants to 22 participants. They found improvements in memory, delayed recall and verbal recall, and recognition skills. The third study, Swinton et al. 2020, is a systematic review. The sample size ranged from 22 participants to 322 participants. They found improvements in memory, overall cognitive function, and executive function. The fourth study, Swinton et al. 2020, is a qualitative descriptive study. The study consisted of 31 participants with MNCD who were residents of a psychiatric center in Belgium. In the exergaming intervention, participants individually performed 3 training sessions per week for a period of 8 weeks, resulting in a total of maximum 24 sessions. Each session consisted of a walk to the exercise room and back, and 15 minutes of exergame training. There was no control group. They found improvements in attention and concentration, and memory and reaction time for a small minority. The fifth study, Yen and Chiu 2021, is a systematic review and meta-analysis. The sample size ranged from 20 participants to 282 participants. They found improvements in memory and overall cognitive function. The sixth study, Swinton et al. 2023, is a mixed methods pilot study. The study consisted of 7 participants with MNCD who were residents of a psychiatric center in Belgium. In the exergaming intervention, participants participated in 30 minutes of stepping exergames added to care as usual 3 times per week for 12 weeks. studies. Care as usual consisted of pharmacotherapy, occupational activities, and physical therapy focusing on comfort care. In the control group, participants participated in traditional physical exercise with everything else staying the same. They found improvements in executive function and MMSE scores, and attention and concentration and overall cognitive function for a minority. The fifth study, Zhu et al. 2023, is a quasi-experimental design. The study consisted of 69 participants from 4 different community settings. In the exergaming intervention, participants engaged in exergaming sessions that were conducted in groups of 4 to 6 persons. The exergaming intervention lasted 8 weeks, with 2 40-minute sessions being conducted every week, including 5 minutes of warm-up and cool-down exercises at the start and end of each session. In the control group, participants received their usual care and were not placed under activity restrictions. They found improvements in attention and concentration, memory, overall cognitive function, executive function, delayed recall, language skills, abstraction, visuospatial function, and MoCA scores. The eighth study, Wu and Ji et al. 2023, is a single-blind randomized control trial. This study consisted of 24 participants from 2 daycare centers in Busan, South Korea. In the exergaming intervention, participants underwent 2 weeks of a familiarization period before starting the 12-week intervention. The frequency of exergaming is 3 days a week. Participants played a running game equipped with a running/jumping mat. In the control group, participants performed a cycling exercise, with everything else remaining the same. They found improvements in memory, overall cognitive function, executive function, naming skills, delayed recall and verbal recall, language skills, visuospatial function, and recognition skills. Now, on to the results for each category. For attention and concentration, 5 studies reported the effect. Overall, all but 1 found improvement. For memory, 7 studies reported the effect with overall significant improvement. For naming, 2 studies reported the effect. Overall, 1 study found moderate improvement and 1 study found no improvement. For recognition, 2 studies reported the effect with overall significant improvement. For reaction time, 1 study reported the effect with overall significant improvement. For overall cognitive function, 6 studies reported the effect. Overall, 3 studies found significant improvement, while 2 studies found moderate improvement. Swinton et al. 2020, the qualitative descriptive study, found significant improvement only in those with mild dementia. For delayed recall and verbal recall, 3 studies reported the effect. Overall, moderate improvement was found. For language, 2 studies reported the effect with overall significant improvement. For abstraction, 1 study reported the effect with overall significant improvement. For orientation, 1 study reported the effect with overall significant improvement. For visuospatial function, 3 studies reported the effect. Overall, 2 studies found improvement, while Yan and Chiu 2021 found none. For MoCA/MMSE scores, 2 studies reported the effect with some improvement. For executive function, 6 studies reported the effect. 3 studies found significant improvement, while 1 found no improvement. Stanton et al. 2018 found that walking exergames did not improve it. Swinton et al. 2020, the qualitative descriptive study, found significant improvement only in those with mild dementia. Most studies were qualitative, meaning they relied on participant interviews after every exergaming session, which had common barriers of participants forgetting the effects of exergaming or simply not understanding the question. Also, a major gap in the studies is information on those with severe dementia, because only adults with early or mild dementia could participate in these experiments. Additionally, exergaming is a broad category, including any video game that requires some form of physical activity. The categories most affected by these obstacles are attention and concentration, memory, executive function, naming skills, and visuospatial function. These categories have varying results even within studies, with outcomes varying from improvement to stimulation to no improvement but maintenance. Some categories also suffered from only having 1 study with data represented. These are reaction time and orientation. Overall cognitive function is unique, as although all 7 studies with data reported on it agreed that it had improved, all of them reported that improvement to a different amount, providing uneven results. So what can we conclude? The categories of delayed recall and verbal recall, language skills, abstraction, and recognition skills showed improvement in all of the studies. Delayed recall and verbal recall and language skills are both skills that focus on forming words, which may explain why they consistently improve together. Recognition utilizes all 3 categories in various manners, so it makes sense for the improvement in all of the other categories to correspond with an improvement in recognition. Overall, these 4 categories seem to be the most feasible to try and improve with integrated exergaming in the regular care of people with dementia. So future experiments should focus on observing the improvement of these categories and further scoping out the possibility of implementing a permanent exergaming solution for home care and skilled nursing facilities. Coming to scores, MoCA and MMSE scores both saw some improvement, but there was no improvement for the MMSE scores midway through the interventions, only at the end of it. This poses some questions as to whether the improvement of cognitive function in dementia patients is a linear slope or rather an exponential one, with more and more improvements as the weeks of an exergaming intervention go on. Also, to make exergaming a feasible treatment to improve the cognitive skills of dementia patients, they must be given opportunities to advance and be challenged more, similar to learning. Thank you for listening to my presentation.